So, together with my colleague Andrea, in the last year, we've been investigating and researching in the field of interactivity for theatrical performance, participatory process in general, and especially dramaturgy. We have a collective which is called Kokoschka Revival that is gathering artists coming from different fields, theater, cinema, music, new media, and we do that in Italy, which is quite a challenge every time for us. And we like to say it because it's also interesting how you find also some creative way of dealing with your sustainability. And for example, for years we organize parties, and inside the parties we develop our research and performances in order to develop our projects, theater and short films. For example, here there is a glimpse of some works. On the top left, there is a short film we did with an Italian philosopher called Franco Berardi Bifo, a Marxist who was playing the role of the Oracle of Delphi, making the Ode of Capitalism, where simply he was theorizing the eternity of capitalism and our extinction in the few decades. And on the right there is another theater show we did in Denmark. It's called Lars, a portrait of Lars von Trier. Was a portrait of the Danish director. When we started to experiment the notion of limit, trying to steal from his manifesto of Dogma 95 and bringing it to theater. We used to research in the field of creating limits just to open new perspective also in our research. And it's also a way, an angle we use technology to, as a tool also to stimulate some limits and see where vitality can be found. And okay, a little provocation. We have the misfortune of living in interesting times. Why? Because I think this was a trigger also for us in terms of contents to start our research and to have this urgency of bringing our vision of contemporary in terms of investigating the spirit of our time. And our time, it's complex to understand. And I brought some references which are some iconical, I guess, pictures of 2019. On the top left, you see a frame taken from a communication campaign of the police department of Hong Kong. They reacted to the compliances of their violent attitude against protesters, creating this meme of the heart, inviting manifestants doing this gesture to avoid aggressions from the police agent. And the same meme as little participle of representation was used by Twitch, a well-known gaming platform that is allowing users to create live streaming shows of gaming but not so on, and receiving from their followers money. So a kind of capitalistic platform that will be the topic in kind of way of our show. And perhaps you've seen it because it's become some very popular, but the Matrix cow, it's an experiment made in Russia by a group of farmers, financed by the Ministry of Agriculture. And basically they discovered that the cows can stand and live apparently happily indoor, just watching through the voir, the open fields, and seems that their milk is sweeter and they are more productive. And the last picture, because our show has this concept of the fight and I find it coherent, those are two frames of two manifestants in Hong Kong and Chile, dressed in a very crazy way that seems a revival of cyberpunk, but from there are some Italian researchers that define that a kind of new middle age, as a way of framing our contemporary. Going with this flow of nowadays science fiction, there are two frames here. On the left, you see a heartbreaking picture of Sydney, Australia, after the firestorm of those months. And on the right, you see a frame of Blade Runner 2049, a film of 2017. And okay, this was, it's a mood board of the live streaming world that was like, let's say, the main reference that we was diving in, because we found it interesting for our research in technology to deal with a dramaturgy and create a dramaturgy on a phenomena that it's that we still didn't understood completely, but it's very actual. For example, in China, there are 500 million people making live streaming every day. For example, like this man, he's working. And so they share their everyday life working. You have tailors, you have people working in a building up scene, and they do it for a few tokens. I mean, for a few coins that they receive from their followers. So it's just to have 15 euros more each month, not a big thing. So, of course, they do that for a lack of human relation that they can create in the virtual space. So this kind of reference that is described in a brilliant way, if you want to know more, in a documentary called The Present Perfect by Shametaj. And yeah, for us was the starting point to start thinking, okay, we are dealing nowadays with more different spaces, no? Perhaps it's not correct to separate virtual space from the space of reality, but we had a discussion about this. But there are these phenomena that are make us thinking about human relation, economics, and so on. And so we entered inside this fight. This is a picture of our show, and we are going to describe it a little bit in terms of interactivity and dramaturgy. You Fight, it's a multimedia theater show about online entertainment platforms and virtual workers. The approach, so we are questioning human relation with technology by coding our software from scratch and fostering interactive tech as a compositional tool for performers. And this is an important part of the research, I think, because has a relation between this polarity of control and the lack of control that in theater you can explore so good, because we gave all the tools to the performance in terms of sensor to control mostly everything in a very complex box. So they are controlling video and
it's
audio.
not just the use of technology, but the fact that we talk about technology and the way in which technology affect and inform our life. So for us it's important to see how technology can inform the practice of the performers, so to create a shared reflection with performers, technicians, dramaturg, director, by using altogether the technologies, and see how the technology change our relationship.
Yeah, our becoming cyborgs, but the theater is a good place also to investigate mistakes and unpredictable things that could happen. And this is the part of the lack of control that we want to make it alive every time. So story, yeah, no spoken words, but there's the plot and a narration driven by this that we call digital mediated dramaturgy. And aesthetics, there this kind of 90 revivals, post-internet culture, and yeah, all the wave of this native digital freakness that we've researched a little bit. and topics. As I said before, there is this topic of this new digital working class in this moment of contemporary that we see like a moment of self-branding. We live in Milan, so everything in Milan is communication, sell yourself, but I think it's general, but in this city is quite strong in this moment. Work exploitation and free time illusion, the dystopian life with a radical gamification of reality, and the role of body and gaze in a hyper-mediated context that we try to make it active through the interactive technology that we developed. Smartphones as main symbol and as both control devices and our most effective objects, and the media space as a predominant space of reality. And all those circumstances are generating, and this was main matter to create then the dramaturgy in terms of characters, the fear of creating profound relation in the non-virtual space. The plot, so just some references. You Fight is the name of the platform that allows users to build virtually identities and work online, helping players to reach their audience. We see on stage the everyday life of two players called Kasparov and the Blue. They're running together a streaming show of interactive chess boxing. It was a sport invented by Enki Bilal, French comic cartoonist. During the work time, the two girls are fighting to be rated real time by their audience in order to earn a token called the energy coin generated by each single like. And the free time is an immersive virtual world where they spend the money you spend the money you've earned, and everyone's greatest fear is eye contact. So they wear most of the show war. Every human transgression brings a debt to pay off as consequence. This is a moment of free time and digital dramaturgy. So each technology we use during the show is implemented in order to develop a specific dramaturgy layer, thereby providing a metaphorical plan of interpretation. So the sound interaction is performance interact with and react to the sound environment, playing the emotional arc of the characters. Media perceptual imperative, the performer where VR displays most of the show, filming and projecting in real time the space. Their perception of the space is therefore profoundly affected and informed by the medium, especially when they play box. And the concept of natural interface would be a future development, but that we started a little bit to rehearse and practice. So the audience can rate the performance in real time and giving them energy coins by shaking their smartphone.
The idea of natural interface is that at the place of using codified computer gesture, we try to put some natural gesture, like in our idea is the fact of using a smartphone and shaking it, like a very simple gesture, in order to rate in real time the actions of the performer on stage.
Yeah, as much as you shake, as more money you produce, and you see it on stage. So
okay, some words about the technologies we implied, not just to talk about techniques, but in order to show how technologies affect the dramaturgical choice. This is just the technical configuration we use in the show. There are three computers. One computer manage all the visual data. So basically, grab the video streaming from the camera. So each performer have a visor with a smartphone inside. So one of the computer grab the image, the camera image, and reproject into the smartphone a sort of artificial stereoscopic image, and reproject it also in the main screen on stage. The other two computers, my computer is dedicated to motion sensors. We use two types of motion sensors, properly motion sensors and a bisignal sensor. There are two routers. One router is dedicated to the motion sensing technologies, while the other router manages the video streaming and the wall connection throughout an IP protocol. And yeah, it's just a representation in order to have a little schema of the technical configuration. Yeah, just a word to specific word to the technology we use. We use a My Armband. It's a commercial device. There's no more product that we use in order to capture is the My Armband 8 channels EMG signals. EMG electromyography is a technique to analyze neuromuscular activities. So it's a sensor that allows us to extract feature connected to the force, so contraction, muscular contraction, etc. This is just a screenshot of the maximum SP environment that we use to both sound synthesis and motion computing. Another device we use, Vitalino Right, is a classic IMU sensor. So it embeds accelerometer, gyroscope, and magnetometer, and the performer wears this either on the hand or on the leg. And so we use the sensor to extract classic motion features like acceleration, velocity, intensity, etc. And a third technology, what I would call head-mounted smartphones. So there is a recall of head-mounted displays, but at the place of classic visor, we use the smartphone. So the idea, as I said before, there is the capture of the camera streaming, recreation of the an artificial recreation of the stereoscopic vision. So the performer don't have a peripheral gaze, but just a frontal view. So it's a kind of artificial vision. And so I use the term augmented reduced vision because of the fact that they don't have a peripheral view, but there is an augmentation since we can send information inside their vision. There is an interesting technique that we call switch view, because during some of the science we can switch the vision of each performer. So when we are performing, I can see with the gaze of Anna and vice versa.
Yeah, and this was a very important part of the research. We spent hours staying lost in the point of view of the other, and this was also feeding the metaphorical plan that was interesting for us. So switch view, but also enter the other. That was a little bit the point, conceptually.
Yeah. Just to conclude, some words. I have how much?
5 minutes.
5 minutes. Okay, perfect. Okay. Well, technical stage plan, not so interesting. Yeah, it's, you can see this is the box sign. So you can see the two projection, the main projection, and with two vision of the two cameras, and on-stage projection that functions as a scenography. Just a word about the dramaturgy of sound. We work on 3 different layers of sound interaction, and each layer is connected to a different type of interaction that affect the way performers interact with the environment, and also is accompanying the evolution of the psychological tension of the characters. So in the first layer, what I call there is a diegetic relation between gesture and sound. So the sound is basically used as didascalic element, since we don't use spoken word during during the performance. So the sound is used as an echo of the movement. So this is the box sign and the chess sign. In the second layer, the relation between gesture and sound is more extra diegetic, in the sense that sound is used to express the psychological tension of the character, even though the sound is generated in real time by the performer. But in dramaturgical terms, is extra diegetic because it describes an atmosphere. In this sign, the relation with sound is really, I would say, Wagnerian, because each performer have a proper sound identity. And to conclude, a third layer in which the sound is intra-diegetic, I would say, because it's at the end of the work when the performers become aware about the platform, the working platform, and so they become aware also the interaction, so they start to use the interaction in order to break the platform. Okay. Yeah. Just to conclude, there is a future development, a last part of the project. We are developing an application in order to allow the audience to interact directly with the performance through the use of their smartphone. That's an application that allows the audience to real-time rate the actions and the behavior of the performers, thereby affecting the development of the performance.
And vice versa.
And vice versa, yeah.
Which is not.
Yeah. Yeah, in a dramaturgical development, we would like also to allow the performer to directly hack the smartphone of the audience.
I mean, this is not. We developed, but
We don't
have the scalability of the thing, because to enter inside each different model of the phone, it's quite complicated. But we developed the code that simply, from a gesture made on stage, you can switch on the torses, or sound, or
generate a
camera,
vibration in the smartphone.
things like that. But still, we need time to
So
enter this fight.
yeah. So thank you for your attention.